Based on Michael Crichton's 1969 novel, The Andromeda Strain tells the story of a group of scientists trying to learn about the nature of a space organism, thoughtfully brought to Earth by the US government in their attempts to discover new biological weapons. After the satellite carrying the virulent wee beastie crashes in New Mexico, killing the entire population of a small town, save for one infant and one old man, and then also kills the first team trying to recover it, that'll serve them right for trying to approach the town at that always awful and unconvincing hour, day for night. Dr. Jeremy Stone, Arthur Hill, recovers the satellite and survivors and takes them all to Wildfire, the top-secret bioresearch centre built to his design. There he's joined by a handful of other distinguished scientists, given top-secret clearance, and tasked with identifying, categorising and neutralising the minuscule space invader. I imagine the Andromeda Strain could test the patience of some, as it takes place, for the most part, in a series of sterile rooms and laboratories, and features numerous sequences of scientists methodically explaining, then performing investigative procedures. But I find it deeply satisfying, not least because, while narrative and drama necessarily accelerate the sequence of events, it maintains a very strong degree of truthiness. Indeed, it has been praised for its veracity by groups working in infectious diseases. On top of this, director Robert Wise maintains a strong sense of tension throughout, though this tension would have been near constant without the unnecessary framing device, used only a few times but to the film's detriment each time, of the incident being considered in retrospect from a Senate hearing. Now, call me crazy if you must, but I feel the fear that Andromeda, as the beastie becomes codenamed, might wipe out huge swathes of population is rather undermined by knowing there are at least enough people left alive afterwards to hold a hearing and discuss such important matters as a paper jam and a fax machine. Still, at least Wise shows a much defter touch here than he did when he again attempted sci-fi at the end of the decade. 43 unending hours of model shots. That'll do me. V'ger needs a goddamn edit. But I digress. I like the Andromeda Strain a lot. It is good. You should watch it.
Yes, I agree. One of the ones I saw actually fairly young, I think. I certainly would have still been in school at the time. And I don't know if it was my first exposure to the sort of methodically paced 70s film, which we'll see a fair amount of as we go through this. You can't imagine this floating in multiplexes today, but I think that's probably too. The multiplex is a loss. It's all works pretty well. It's I hesitate to say hard science fiction, but it's at least fairly solid science fiction. It's not.
It's not hard science fiction in that it's not. Well, you know, it's in a way hard science fiction, isn't it? It is quite...
It's as hard as you could probably put into a film without it just being incredibly dull, I think. The only thing that ever annoyed me, it annoyed me at the time, and it annoyed me a bit more now, was the whole gimmick of one of the scientists having a very peculiar form of photosensitive epilepsy, but as a couple of major plot points, and that seemed cheap at the time, and it's a shame that they do it with a character that's otherwise, really quite memorable and particularly for female characters of that era.
Yeah, exactly.
Particularly strong, and having that as a kind of weird Achilles heel is just a bit weird.
Yeah, it's perhaps unnecessary because, I mean, it would have been enough that she missed something simply because they were all exhausted.
Yeah.
They were burning the candle at both ends and then cut the candle in half so they'd have two extra ends to burn. And... yes, it's perhaps unnecessary from that point of view. The only thing I can think that might be a reason for that being there, that might be a legitimate reason rather than it was a bad idea, is because they do mention the fact that had she mentioned it, various prejudices, and perhaps because she's a woman too, would have barred her from serving in the government or something like that.
Yes, I suppose a different time, I guess. Perhaps that's a bit more realistic of a concern back then, I guess. But yes.
But still, I mean, it's for the most part unnecessary simply because, as I said, they didn't really need to give any other reason for her missing that thing because, they're just all exhausted.
Yes.
You know, human beings can only concentrate for a certain amount of time. And even if they wanted to keep the scene at the end when she's having the seizure and people are thinking she's infected, you could simply have had her dropped down from exhaustion or something.
Yeah.
And still people think, oh, it's the Andromeda has escaped, we're going to die, because they think that's why she's collapsed.
Yeah.
You know, it didn't actually need that extra level of epilepsy for some reason.
But that is really the only bone I have with the film, for the most part. There's perhaps some effects work, like the laser escape sequence at the end, which perhaps doesn't look quite so good these days, but it doesn't look too bad. And it's, for the most part, it's a consistently intriguing look at infection, which has been sort of... Most of these films that we're talking about, you can pick something up, fairly recently that's kind of been influenced more or less directly by all the things we're going to talk about today. I think this one's probably, I guess, maybe closest to something like Soderbergh's Contagion from a few years back. Something like that. It's perhaps broadly similar.
Actually, no, sorry, I was... another film came to mind, and I've realised I actually know that doesn't have much of that. I don't think there's much investigation at all. But what I was thinking of was, what was the film with Rory Cochrane, where he's trapped in a house and he's trying to keep the viruses out, but actually it turned out that he's created an incubator for himself.
That's
Is it just like Outside or Inside or something? It's got a name like that, I think.
Yes, I know the one you think of, but I can't think of the name.
Oh, it's not important. I think... Oh, At Your Door. Or some, that's what it is. It's at your door? At your doorstep? At your door? But, again, I can't even remember the name so clearly. I can't remember the details. I think perhaps it isn't an analogue, but Contagion absolutely is, yeah.
It's Right At Your Door, I think is
Right
the
at
one.
Your Door.
Yeah. Yes.
So I may have thrown you off your stride there somewhat.
Yes, no. So I guess it has influenced a few films going on. For my mind, not as many as it probably should. I like kind of more slower-paced investigative stuff. So yes, I would heartily recommend seeing this, and also seeing that people steal more from this in future.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. Does suffer a bit from its 70s setting in the way that some of it looks. It does scream 70s.
Yeah,
but there are just the xenon hair removal thing with its Daft Punk helmets,
yes,
which I like, but I'm not convinced works as a real thing. But I mean, it looks really interesting. Just the idea of like they've got the different sterile rooms, they have the different lifts for bringing things down. There's they've thought about it to actually like, how would you do this if it were real? And I like that.
Yes,
I like the thought that's clearly gone into it, which again perhaps makes that epilepsy thing even more unnecessary because they put so much thought into the rest of it.
Yeah.
Well, I thoroughly enjoy this film. I love this kind of the procedural, just methodical nature of it, as you say too. But you mentioned the lasers at the end. It's possibly the other real beef I have with it is that these lasers are there for if there's like a rodent or something escaping. Okay, I understand why they're there, and they're meant to be a danger because they could hurt this guy. Okay, I'm not sure why getting shot in the cheek with a laser makes him all woozy and have funny vision.
It was a poison laser, as you understand.
Would it not just hurt? I'm not sure why it's made him all like he's suffering some sort of effect in Fallout or something, you know?
Yeah.
That's it, yeah. You're right. It's like in Fallout, there should have been a wee symbol of a man flashing the bottom right of the screen showing which part of his head had been poisoned. Yes. And offering the option to put a stim pack in him. This is... It's only the second time I've seen it. I didn't actually see it for the first time until really quite recently. And even having watched it twice in relatively quick succession is just as rewarding the second time. It's just a really solidly made film. There aren't many holes in it.
Yeah.
I mean, that thing I mentioned about the fax machine, it's maybe a wee bit manufactured. But again, you could have just made that a wee drama point that we're going to get the message without having to have the framing of the hearing. That's the only real issue I have with it is, why does it have this framing? It adds nothing. In fact, it clearly detracts from the film.
Yeah, it only ever seems to get used for explaining things that were fairly obvious anyway from the films. For the most part, slightly strange decision, yes.
Yeah, So we're off to a good start though. Both, I think, thoroughly recommend the Andromeda Strain.
Yes.
At the risk of giving away my thoughts, so I think we don't move forward quite so successfully.